All right. Hello and welcome to the Fitz and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitzgerald, and today I have someone that I'm not going to lie, I've been excited about since the first time I heard of her name, and I literally just found out about her maybe a few months ago. So Dr. Molly Maloof, she is an MD who literally is a girl after my own heart. I was told about her when I was wearing this little device for 3 weeks. And for those of you that are not watching the podcast, this is a CGM device for your ability to monitor your continuous blood glucose. A lot of you have followed me through that on Instagram, and you listened to the part two episodes where we went over all that I did on the CGM experiment. And then I had someone message me like, hey, do you know who Dr. Molly Maloof is? And I'm like, no. And they're like, she's like the leading expert in this whole CGM stuff. I'm like, what? And so I start looking her up, and literally I was like, oh my gosh, this girl, like literally, I've listened to so many interviews with her, and you guys are going to be super impressed today. So I could go over all of her resume. It's very impressive. I'll just say that not only is she an MD, but she was asked by Stanford to teach a course. I mean, like legit, this girl is next level. So Molly, thank you for being here with me today. I really appreciate you. Despite our, for those of you that can't see, she has Hawaii in the background. So
I'm on a mini sabbatical out here in Hawaii working on a book based on my course I'm teaching at Stanford and a lot of the research I've been doing on glucose monitoring.
I love it. I love it. So you, like we were talking pre-show, you're originally from an area that's literally like, what, 30 minutes away from DeKalb?
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I'm from the Midwest. We're from, the part of the country that frankly needs the most education about blood sugar.
Gosh, don't even get me started, girl.
It's hard. I mean, I remember when I was in medical school, they were rebuilding the hospital and they had to install like cattle elevators because of the amount of morbid obesity. And it was like really getting to me, honestly. So I moved to the West Coast and I was just like, I need to figure out a way to help people understand how not to get this sick because, morbid obesity is a really big problem. And I just kind of feel like people don't really understand their bodies and their health. And so I'm so glad to meet doctors like you. I'm really so inspired by the digital social media world of physicians that are just coming out and saying, look, we've got to educate the masses to teach everybody how to take better care of their bodies,
Absolutely. When I came back from Japan and my first, US stateside job was in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma is pretty much part of the Midwest. It's the same. And I just remember every single patient on my OR table that I was about to put to sleep thinking, man, if I only could have gotten to them 10 years ago, they would either need the surgery or have all of the comorbidities that I just heard about
It's hard.
So I have to say, so after listening, it took me a few podcast interviews of yours to figure out what you did your residency in. And then I just have to say, because literally everyone always said I was ballsy leaving anesthesia. I mean, I only practiced anesthesia for 6 years and it's a lucrative specialty. And once I realized that it didn't align with my beliefs anymore, I couldn't literally go practice. And you basically made an even ballsier move. And you saw that in the middle of your residency.
I was in the middle of my residency. And you know what? Here's the thing. It's so funny that I get so many messages from people like, how did you become who you are? What are you doing? How did you do this? How do I be like you? I'm like, look, I don't recommend people leave their residency and become entrepreneurial doctors and start researching their own form of what they believe to be medicine, which is Healthspan extension. What I was doing was really risky. And my whole family rejected me and they were like, you are crazy. We don't even know how you're going to survive out there.
Oh yeah.
Cause none of their friends' kids had survived in San Francisco and they had normal jobs.
Right.
So they're like, she's not gonna be able to like pay her rent. And I was like, you guys don't know who you're dealing with. Like I'm someone who will always be able to figure herself out and figure her life out. And I was on a cancer ward with kids. We were feeding them cake and candy. It was driving me literally bonkers. I was like, you cannot do this to children. This is first principles thinking. Like cancer lives on glucose. And so if you feed it cake, you're basically feeding it, the fuel it needs to grow. And my attendings were like, you're nuts. And I'm like, well, I think the system is crazy. And so kind of did what was really silly. And I said, I'm going to resign. I'm going to start working with tech companies. I'm going to start my own practice. And it was really a move out of just like a deep, 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 like burning passion and desire to like see a different world
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
And I knew that technology was going to change everything in medicine. I was like, look, you guys don't even get it. There's a tsunami of change coming to the whole system.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ride that wave. Well, it's going to, topple all of you if you're not
That gives me
careful,
chills. Yeah. So
you
true.
know? And so I was like, I'm going to go surf. And
Yeah.
like, frankly, the last, 9 years, 8 years of working on my own and working with 40 different companies in either technology, biotechnology, supplements, food, you name it. I mean, even skincare. I've done a lot of consulting and advising. So I've gotten a lot of business experience that way, but then I've also built my own medical practice. And that
Yeah.
practice was basically designed out of this hypothesis, which was, what if you actually worked on helping people become healthier instead of
Mm,
just fixing their sicknesses?
mm.
And that actually led me to I was fortunately surrounded by some really brilliant people who like really pushed me to think about first principles.
Right.
And they were like, what, like, okay, so you have this hypothesis, but what does that actually mean? So
Right.
I actually spent a lot of time doing my own research and trying to figure out, what is health? Like, what is health? Like, what does that even mean to be healthy? And I discovered that health is the ability to adapt and self manage in the face of adversity.
Mm.
And that means that it's your ability to be able to bounce back when something hits you hard in life. And that, to me, according to all my science and research I've been doing, is a product of your capacity, right? And where does capacity come from? Capacity comes from capacitance, right? So capacitance comes from literally the electrochemical gradient you create in your cells when you eat food and you store charge. And so we store charge in two ways. We store charge as batteries with this gradient, this membrane potential. But then as we move charge and we use charge, and charge is just basically voltage, that basically generates a magnetic field. And that magnetic field is the charge stored between two membranes, which is our cellular membrane is a capacitor.
Yeah.
And the membrane of our mitochondria are capacitors. So when we literally store and deploy charge, that movement of charge creates capacitance. So essentially, what I believe in my theory, and not just my theory, but a bunch of other doctors' theories, is that healing is all about voltage. It's all about
Mm.
the energy capacity you have to be able to withstand, whatever life hits you with, and also having the resources. So the resources come from financial resources,
Yep.
but then also the actual physical resources, like your body's resources, which means that what you feed your body and what you use to make your home
Is
matters.
everything.
So like your omega-3, omega-6 ratio matters because that literally forms the actual membranes of your cells and the myelin sheaths of your nerves. And so, and then muscle building, amino acids. Do you have enough literal muscle mass to maintain your structure as you age? Because we know we waste muscle as we age. So it's about building that muscle when we're young, maintaining it as we get older, having the right amount of protein in our diet, not too much, not too little,
Right.
and also not messing up our daily metabolism with our blood sugar. And so blood sugar is your fuel supply that you're constantly running on. And then your ketones are also a form of fuel supply. And so in a healthy metabolism, you're shifting in and out of ketosis and carb metabolism. And that should be done through things like intermittent fasting or challenging your metabolism with things like, ketogenic diet here and there. But it's really about, how do you adapt to different food supplies?
Mm.
So this has kind of become my mantra. It's like, think about your home as a temple, literally as a physical edifice. And you
Right.
have to have the right wiring, you have to have the right fuel supply, and you have to have the right structural components to maintain the structure.
Right, right. So one thing that I definitely want to talk about is metabolic flexibility.
Yes.
Because that was one thing like you, I thought I was pretty healthy,
Uh-huh.
and wearing that CGM, I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, okay. I actually, I think I'm going to go back to wearing it all the time. I only
Yeah.
had 2 sensors, and I was just doing it for a 21-day experiment, but it
Yeah.
really, the negative feedback of knowing, oh, I don't want to see my blood glucose go that high, even though I have the finger prick. It's
Totally.
just so much easier to be able to scan your arm and be like, nope, it's right there. I don't think
Yeah.
I'm going to have that, extra whatever.
Well,
But metabolic flexibility, can you explain to my
yeah.
listeners what that is?
Okay. So if you think about a system that's flexible versus a system that's rigid, a system that's rigid isn't going to change very easily. It's kind of stuck at a certain set point. So that's what happens to you if you get if you basically don't take care of your body and you develop diabetes, what happens is that your baseline set point keeps rising as your blood sugar goes. Your blood sugar goes up and your set point changes. And what happens is your fasting glucose goes up, which is a signal that your liver is dysfunctional and you've got liver insulin resistance. And that means that you've got fatty liver, which is really what most people have. If you're obese and you have a really big amount of visceral fat around your abdomen, you probably have a fatty liver. And a fatty liver is kind of rigid because it's literally stuffed with fat. So when you have a fatty liver that's stuffed with fat, it's not going to function normally. It's not going to be able to drop your blood sugar effectively because it's basically like always pumping out blood sugar because it's got too much fat around. And people don't understand that triglycerides have a glycerol backbone. And so you have to have a healthy liver to have a healthy fasting blood sugar. Metabolically inflexible people do not have a healthy fasting blood sugar. They have a high fasting blood sugar. So they're pre-diabetic or diabetic. Now, postprandial blood sugar is your muscle insulin sensitivity mostly, and partially your liver sensitivity. But basically, when you eat food that's really high carb and your blood sugar goes way too high, way too high, your pancreas is not able to actually handle the glucose load because your pancreas has lost its ability to regulate your system. And so now you have a really high blood sugar, and you're also producing reactive oxygen species, which is basically like it's basically like exhaust fumes. Like if you push your gas pedal, if you push your foot on the gas pedal and you get all those gas fumes that are coming out the back of your car, that's what's happening when you eat a big, let's say I just made banana bread. If I made that out of regular flour and sugar and bananas, and I would have eaten that, then I would have seen a big push of blood sugar, and it would have caused all sorts of havoc in my blood vessels. So metabolically flexible people have abnormal metabolism, and their metabolism isn't regulating itself effectively. Another good way to think about like metabolic flexibility is like what happens when you challenge your metabolism with something like a high fat diet. People who have metabolically flexible bodies do not shift from carb metabolism to fat metabolism effectively. So when they try a ketogenic diet, they start feeling like garbage. They get the keto flu. Yep. They feel really, really sick when they start going from carb to fat metabolism. Now, I have worked on my metabolic flexibility. So if I go into a high fat diet, my body just shifts into that phase. And it's like, and I actually sometimes accidentally go into ketosis.
Right.
Because I'll cut my carbs pretty low and I'll start exercising. I'm like, oh, I smell ketones. Cool. Yep. And that's metabolic flexibility. You don't even notice when you're going in and out of ketosis because your body is able to shift gears. Now, if you're not shifting gears, it's like when you're driving stick and you're like, your gears are just like, they're tensing up on you. It's like the whole car isn't running the way it should. Another way to test metabolic flexibility is to start fasting. So if you fast ineffectively without losing your mind or like really, really getting low blood sugar, and you're not raising your ketones as your blood sugar is dropping, which you can see on a blood sugar monitor and a ketone tester, when that's happening, that's metabolic inflexibility. So there's ways to test it. It's things like fasting, things like giving yourself a stimulus of carbs or fats, and seeing what happens to your body. And really it's all about the mitochondria at the end of the day. The mitochondria are your sensors and your regulators and your power processors and your power plants. So basically they're responding and reacting to whatever signals they're getting sent. And that means that if you're sending signals of food inavailability, your body in a metabolically flexible state should be like, cool, I got you. You got fat supplies, we're good. But in a state of high stress, in a state of insulin resistance due to a high stress state, your mitochondria are going to be like, oh shit, what's going on? What am I doing? And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people are metabolically inflexible is that they're very, very stressed out, or they're really, really inactive.
Yes.
So inactivity, too much stress, eating the wrong foods at the wrong times, at the wrong amounts, that's what causes us to lose our ability to maintain homeostasis effectively and adapt and self-manage when we get hit with stress. So the way that you get metabolically flexible is you look at your movement and you say, am I sitting too much? Am I not moving my body enough? Am I not giving myself the metabolic stimulus to actually produce a more healthy body? Or am I just fundamentally not sleeping well, right? Just not sleeping well will damage your metabolism.
Yep.
So it's all about really triangulating, like, where is this person's body out of alignment with nature's design of their body and their systems? So metabolic flexibility is really actually a pretty complex thing because it's basically a reflection of your body's ability to maintain itself under stress.
I just got back from a functional medicine conference, and, so many of the answers are not these big, expensive, either
Oh
drugs or
yeah.
supplements. It's literally getting back to the basics. And, one thing, which I already knew this, but they asked the question, what do you think is the number one determinant? If you don't address it, it will lead to early death. And of course they gave, all of these options, but the answer was sleep. And everyone,
Yeah.
there were a lot of people that were kind of surprised at that. And I mean, sleep is something that you can fix for free.
Yeah.
But you have
Yeah.
to be intentional about it.
Well, the thing about sleep that people don't realize is there's a bunch of things. So to me, sleep falls under the category of mastering your stress.
Yes.
Like your sleep is your way of your body turning off its systems. And there's a lot of genetic activity going on. There's a lot of expression going on during sleep. Like you're reformatting your hard drive, you're recovering from the day's stress, you are balancing the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. You are literally resting. You are resting. Like if you
Yes.
do not balance your nervous system, you are always in a stress state.
Yep.
So sleep and stress are in the same two sides of the same coin, right? It's
Right.
like you have a stress response, you have a life that's stressful, you have to have a relaxation response. And so not sleeping is usually a symptom that your daytime stress is out of whack.
Yep.
And you have poor habits. So most people who sleep poorly do not have good sleep hygiene,
Nope.
which means that they're on their computers late at night, they've got screens in their face, they're sleeping with animals in their beds that are waking them up. Maybe they don't have the right temperature in their bedroom,
Right.
but they're really not giving themselves that wind down period.
Yeah.
And they're also not doing things to manage their stress during the day.
Right.
So they're not getting regular breaks during the day. They're like
Not
nonstop
meditating
every day, all day meditation.
Dude,
I mean,
that was mentioned so many times in all of these lectures. And
it's everything.
and that's another thing I definitely wanted to talk to you about, because
Yeah.
you have taken that to the next level and made it a priority in your life. And
not only that, I've done like 3 meditation retreats in the last 6 months.
I'm a little
I had
envious.
to.
I think I actually want to do one of those, because I really, it's, I
It
knew
is
it
the
was
medicine
important.
I've been looking for my entire life. Like,
did y'all hear that?
It is literally medicine, and it's free.
Yes.
Like you can literally sit down, and I don't care. Like, detach the idea that you have to be a pro meditator and you have to do it right. Just completely give up that idea.
Yes.
Like if all you do is go before you sleep, lay down for an hour with the lights on, just lay down in your bed, feel your body for an hour. I want you to literally spend your thoughts, just scanning your head from top to bottom, just feeling everything. That to me is the ultimate meditation. And that is something that I didn't even know that was a meditation, because I thought meditation was like, sit still and calm your thoughts and be focused and be so like aggressive about like being good at this. Like give up being good at anything. Just be. Just simply sit.
Absolutely.
And be calm and feel your nervous system turn on the relaxation response. And
so how do you get, because you were that type A go-getter.
Oh my God. Yes.
So the struggle of like, okay, there's so many of us that are having trouble transferring over to the other side.
I know.
Right.
I know,
and
I know.
So what made you finally click and be like, okay, I have to take this serious, because I know it's so important, and it might be the most valuable tool that I will ever learn how to do appropriately, but I have not really done it appropriately for a while.
I mean,
always.
So first of all, again, stop saying that you have to like decouple. Everyone gets in their own way of meditation by being like, by believing that there's a right way or a wrong way to do it.
Right.
There's absolutely no way to screw up meditation. If all you did was sit still for 5 minutes, stillness is this magical place of feeling everything. And the thing is that most people don't want to sit still because they're afraid of feeling their emotions. They're afraid of feeling their bodies. They're afraid of what's going to come up, because frankly, stuff comes up. And that's the medicine. The medicine is actually being like, oh, something's coming up. I'm noticing that this is happening and I'm feeling it. And as somebody who spent her entire life trying not to feel anything that felt uncomfortable, it's literally relinquishing this idea of you have to resist your feelings. It's like you have to, like, people are so used to stuffing their feelings underneath their system and then stuffing their face with food. And like, everyone does this, by the way.
Absolutely.
Everyone stress eats. And so
Absolutely.
when we really just look at it as my body's really trying to talk to me, my body really wants to be heard. And you're like, and what's happening is like, if you look at yourself as a child and you stress eat, what you're doing is you're literally shoving food in a child's face because they're bothering you. And that's what everyone does to their
Oh
children.
yeah, absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
we're mass training our country to respond to stress with food in our face and with carbs in our mouth.
Yep.
And we wonder why we're getting diabetes, and we wonder why we can't actually accept
Break free.
the issues in our lives that are actually keeping us back from full happiness and fundamental well-being.
Right.
And it's like, it actually is this lack of responsiveness to our own feelings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I am a thinker and I am not a feeler by nature. I've had to train myself
Yeah.
to feel. And a lot of it has been through just like going to these retreats and like being present for everything that's coming up and being like, oh, okay. Like, turns out a lot of what causes us suffering is the stories that we tell ourselves about our lives.
Huh.
It's actually the narrative self that is this like constant monkey mind background noise that's like, but this person did this and this person did that, and then this happened and they caused me to feel this way. And actually, no, you caused yourself to feel that way by the way that you're reacting to that person. And the reason why you're reacting to that person is because you do not have any handle over your emotional response. And you are letting that person dictate your inner feeling and state. So frankly, the way to freedom is to take deep and ultimate ownership and responsibility for everything. Meaning, it doesn't matter what happens to you on the outside.
Right.
It's all about how do you respond to what's happening to you. And that is literally within your power. And that took me a long time because I used to be one of those people who blamed everyone around them for their problems.
Right.
It was the system that was my problems. It was the healthcare system that caused me to be so unhappy, or it was, that relationship that caused me to be so unhappy. No, actually what causes you to be happy is you unhappy. Like, you cause your own happiness or unhappiness, but you have to be able to take ownership for your decisions in your life.
So,
and be able to just be extremely responsible.
So can I ask you, because I know that you're super passionate about psychedelics, and in relation to this part of a person's journey, because I know that it's a topic that you're passionate about, and it's a topic that a lot of people are scared to even ask about, much less talk about.
Sure.
But what got you interested in the psychedelics and how they can help a person's journey?
Yeah. Okay. So I read a lot of books on psychedelics before I even took a psychedelic. So I was in college in the history and philosophy library.
Okay.
At the University of Illinois. And I found this whole section of books on psychedelics. And I was like, whoa.
Right.
So I read like the whole thing and I was like, this is just crazy. How come no one knows about this stuff?
Right.
So I started learning about different leaders, and like Andrew Weil has always been a big inspiration to me.
Yeah.
And he wrote about psychedelics in a way that was really kind of groundbreaking. And it was really from an academic perspective. It was like, people have been using these from the beginning of time.
Right.
So they may have some role in our human evolution. And so I thought, okay, like, I'm going to learn as much as I can about these before I even try them.
Right.
And then I tried it for the first time. And I remember the first time I tried mushrooms, I was speechless for like 24 hours afterwards. I was just literally like, it was this ineffable, like, I had no words to describe the
power,
like the majesty and beauty of what the world could look like.
Wow.
And I was very fortunate that I was in the company of really safe, I was in a safe environment with the right people.
Right.
Setting and like the preparation that you go into and the intention you go into these experiences is everything. And then the integration is also quite important. But I mean, I had a pretty strong opinion about psychedelics before they were mainstream. I was like, these are medicines and these are transformative for health, and they have a role in human evolution, and they have a whole role in human healing.
Right.
And it's just a matter of time before everyone else figures this out.
Right.
So I arguably, some of the experiences I had early on were recreational.
Right.
But what's happened over time is they've gone from recreational to ceremonial to medicinal. And so there's really sort of three categories I see people using them. First, they get into them and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to go do this at a music festival. Yes. Awesome. Great.
Typical college kid. Yeah.
Also very dangerous environment because you're altered. You're in an environment where you don't know people. You can get caught. You can get arrested. very, very, very risky business.
Typically
and
buying it
also
from the black market or someone who
black
has
market, and then you don't know how to dose it.
Right.
And so a lot of people have these really bad experiences in their early 20s because they had like the wrong dose, and now they're forever ever damaged. They're like, I will never do this again because
Yep.
this caused me to be just like, this ruined my life.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
and then you see people go off the deep end and they become addicted to other drugs.
Yep.
So, it is not recommended to like experiment in that way, frankly.
No.
And I don't recommend that anymore.
No.
The second way is a ceremonial context. And I see this happening a lot in big cities right now in Los Angeles, New York, LA, Austin. You see these people coming together in sound healing ceremonies where they're administered a small amount of psychedelic medicine, whether it's MDMA, psilocybin, ketamine, and you're seeing these ayahuasca, right? And you're seeing these ceremonial experiences in community that are basically, there's an intention setting, there's an experience, there's usually sound involved, and then there's an integration period with a group of people. And it's a lot more organized, I'd say, than the recreational. However, there are, you really got to trust your shaman because it's like you're getting some brain surgery.
Right.
So you got to be really, really careful with like how you go and integrate this experience. And now there's the medicinal experiences, right? So now there's all these training programs at places like CIIS that are training psychologists and medical doctors in how to administer psychedelics in a actual medicinal context. A few of my friends right now are actually getting ketamine assisted psychotherapy training in Northern California.
Nice.
With some doctors, and they're really doing it from a place of this is, and here's the real medicine. So what people don't realize is that psychedelics actually have the ability to increase neuroplasticity in the brain.
Right.
So in a depressed, anxious, chronically stressed, or PTSD brain, what's happened is that the brain has lost its ability to have significant neuroplasticity. So the brain goes into sort of an energy saving power mode. And it's like, I just literally need to preserve my ability to maintain survival.
Right.
So in that survival state, in that constant state of chronic stress, your brain is literally turning down its neuroplasticity in order to survive and maintain its baseline, it's sort of baseline function.
Right.
But the problem is that chronically over time, that is not functional.
Nope.
So you have this state of decreased neuroplasticity, and you can't actually think your way out of your ditch that you're in. You're in a ditch, you're like flailing your arms, you're freaking out, you're like, what do I do to get out of here? This sucks.
Right.
And you can't get out of there because your brain won't move you out. So actually SSRIs, believe it or not, have some mechanism of action in increasing neuroplasticity. But psychedelics to me are even more effective because what they do is they put you into a state of an altered state of consciousness, and arguably with psychotherapy attached, you're in a state where you actually feel pretty good. You feel better, like literally there's a antidepressant, anesthetic, analgesic, anti-anxiety. Like ketamine has all of these different functions.
Oh yeah, it was one of my favorite drugs to use when I was practicing anesthesia.
Right. And so there's all of these there's basically all of these different functions of ketamine that work on the brain to put you in a state where you don't feel so unsafe, where you feel like you're kind of and you're also disassociated from your normal reality. Like you're like able to take a step back and you're like, oh, this all is so crazy, but I see it now. I see where I'm at, and I'm actually able to reformat this hard drive and reformat this software system that I'm in. And so what's happening is you're able to 1 second. I'm getting a person texting me.
It's all good. It always happens.
So that's ketamine, for example. And then there's things like, there's a lot of people that are frankly self-medicating with microdosing psychedelics right now in Silicon Valley.
Right.
Mostly because they're all super chronically stressed.
Right.
And they're like, this is helping me function. Yeah. Now, the thing about microdosing psychedelics is that you don't actually know how you're going to respond because some people microdose and they get more anxious.
Right.
Some people microdose and they get less anxious. Some people microdose and they're more high performing. Some people microdose and they it diminishes their performance. But a lot of what I think people are trying to do is manage the chronic stress of their lives that's literally changing their brain's function.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
trying to find this ability to form new connections so that they don't feel stuck.
Right.
So stuck.
Right.
But so now there's a company in London that's actually trying to bring like microdose LSD to market. There's
Right.
Compass out of Johns Hopkins that's trying to bring psilocybin assisted therapy to
Cool.
market. There's
Cool.
MAPS, which is trying to bring MDMA assisted therapy to market. And then there's all the doctors around the country that are administering ketamine assisted therapy for things like suicidal depression. I mean, it's actually now approved for that.
Right.
What I have found is that I had some friends that were suffering from severe anxiety from end of life anxiety, both a wife and I've seen multiple partners that have one partner has a terminal illness and the other partner has end of life anxiety for their partner. And so in those cases, I've seen psilocybin assisted therapy actually improve their ability to function in normal life because they're actually able to come to terms with their mortality. So in a lot of ways, these are existential medicines too.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of like the disclaimer to all this is a lot of them are not legal.
Right. I was about to say, unfortunately, a lot of these options are not legal.
Psilocybin is becoming decriminalized in cities like Oakland, Denver, and even Hawaii soon, potentially.
Nice.
But the biggest risks are people don't know how to dose these medicines correctly.
Right.
And because they have very wide, they're not like that. One of the benefits of
regulation,
traditional regulated medicines is what you're getting in terms of dosing.
True.
And getting medicine through a doctor means exactly what you're going to be getting.
Exactly.
So I have seen people have psychotic breakdowns from basically not dosing correctly psilocybin and MDMA.
Right.
And that is a real risk. And so you have to really do your homework if you're going to go do the self-administration, which I'm not recommending, but I do know people are doing. So that's why I'm coming out into media and saying, okay, somebody's going to have to talk about this because otherwise kids are going out there and hurting themselves.
Absolutely.
And, there unfortunately there aren't enough doctors and trained psychotherapists and centers around the world where people can go and actually do the work.
No.
So we have to talk about this in the media right now. And I'm so glad we're talking about it on this podcast and video, because I think it's really very important for people to know how not to hurt themselves.
Absolutely. I actually had a talk with the director of IFM when I was at this conference, and I asked if they have any kind of social media training, because typically the functional medicine practitioners are not great at social media. But the fact is, if we want to really make this movement hit young people before they've already done all the damage, we have got to be better about social media, because that's the way we reach people. And that's the way we make this epidemic actually start reversing. So
exactly. And I love definitely what you do. I mean, I love that. I mean, you and I, and then I'm going on YouTube now and I'm seeing so many amazing doctors, and it's just like, there's such a powerful opportunity here to actually give people knowledge that's useful.
Absolutely.
And what drives me nuts is that you see these articles in the media from these like mainstream doctors, and they're like, the keto diet is damaging to health. I'm like, okay, tell that to like the thousands of people that I've seen on YouTube. Follow these doctors that are like teaching them how to do keto correctly and how to fast and how to actually flip the metabolic switch. And tell me that these people like are wrong. Like if they're getting results, like the results speak for themselves. Right. Now, keto doesn't work for everybody.
True.
And fasting doesn't work for everybody.
True.
And if you don't have if you're super stressed out, giving yourself a metabolic stressor isn't necessarily going to fix your issue.
Probably will make it worse.
It may make it worse. And so I see this all the time I got a crying friend of mine recently, a video from her, and she was just like, I'm trying keto and I'm trying intermittent fasting and nothing's working. And I'm like, okay, you're having a nervous breakdown because you're not losing weight. And how do you not realize that you're actually, the reason why you're not losing weight is because your stress levels aren't letting you. Exactly. You cannot release weight. It's because your body is in a state of literal emergency.
Absolutely.
And in an emergency state, the body will hold and hoard calories so that it can survive, because that's its primitive design.
Exactly.
That's the way your body's designed.
It's not just you are eating too many calories and not exercising enough, people. It is your hormones.
It's your hormones. Exactly.
That are there to save your life. They're there for survival. Yeah, absolutely.
And like in those people's cases, I'm like, what you need is to completely just completely stop caring and focus completely on stress reduction. Like that's
Absolutely.
it. Regular meal times, stress reduction. That's all your body needs. Like in those cases of real high stress people, I actually think they actually need regular, they need to eat more often.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
almost like they need safety signals.
Right.
You cannot stress a body's metabolism if it's in an unsafe state.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've tried it for myself, it doesn't work.
It doesn't
You
work.
have the only way that you can stress your metabolism and give it these hormetic stressors is that if you're in a state where your nervous system is in rest and digest and it can handle the hormetic stressor.
Right.
Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure, especially with women's bodies.
Oh my
Women's
goodness.
bodies are just so sensitive to stress. And,
Absolutely.
like if, especially if you have polycystic ovarian disorder, like, you have to focus on insulin resistance and focus on what's causing insulin resistance in your body's case. And in her case, it was her stress levels.
Right. Right. I have a good friend who's an attorney. And I mean, literally every time we go to dinner with them, he's telling us stories and it's just, I feel him radiating the stress off of everything. And
Yeah.
I literally tell him every time, you've got to start doing yoga. Like
That's
you,
oh my God, yoga is medicine and people don't realize it, but yoga
thank
is
you.
actually okay. So the coolest thing I learned about yoga recently is that PCO, piezoelectricity, you know what that is?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like when you actually compress like an energy system, and it literally the compression of the muscles in the back produces more energy. It literally liberates energy. It's actually part of the mechanism of action of why yoga works.
Yes.
It's the compression and the movement of the spinal cord and the muscles that produces more energy. So it's like I was always wondering, like, why do I get so much energy from this thing that I'm not burning a lot of calories in?
Right. Right.
But it's actually liberating energy in a totally new manner.
Yeah.
And so it's fundamental to health. I mean, I think yoga is like the ultimate medicine for stress.
Oh, I do too. There was this meme that I saw of a woman who she was sitting cross-legged. She looked about in her mid 60s and she was 92 and she'd been
Hmm.
practicing yoga for pretty much her whole adult life. And I'm like, that is my goal right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Which I think that that's a great segue to talk about Healthspan. Can we talk about health?
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, this is a
Cool.
concept. Explain the concept to my listeners first,
Yeah.
please.
Okay. So imagine that you have your lifespan, right?
Yep.
But like you're young here and then you're starting to hit midlife and then stuff starts to break. And then
Yeah.
for like the last 50 years of your life, it's like downhill.
Uh-huh.
And that is not how life needs to be. Like life can literally be like you grow and you maintain and then you hit 100 and then boom, right?
Right.
Like that's how the centenarians die. Is
Right.
they live a really healthy existence and then the last 3 years of their life they get sick and they die eventually.
Right.
That is health span. Health span is living a long and healthy life without this chronic disease, period.
Right.
And so if you think about capacity, it's like literally it's like a battery, right? So if you start losing 50% of your power, then all stuff starts breaking down. And
Yep.
so the mitochondrial theory of aging basically suggests that when you start losing 50% of your power supply, then the house starts falling apart. And it's like an old house that's been not maintained very well. The
Yep.
electrical system stopped working, the appliances stopped working, and like stuff starts leaking, and the foundation starts getting cracks. And now you got mold, and now there's like, vermin breaking in. And that's
Mm-hmm.
basically what's happening to people as they're getting older and their immune systems are failing because they don't have enough energy to maintain the structure.
Right.
So you have to have the right energy and the right substrates,
Right.
which means you have to have the right food and
Food.
literally like your body is made of stuff.
Yes.
You have to make the body like people maintain their homes. Okay. So you have to maintain the body, which means you have to feed the right materials into the system.
Thank
And that
you.
means your gut health has to be strong because your gut is the power processing plant. So you're processing all the fuel. You're basically fuel processing is
Right.
your gut. If
Right.
your gut is unhealthy, you're not going to have healthy metabolism.
Mm-mm.
So think about the gut like your garden in the back. You have to have the right compost.
Yep.
You have to till the garden. You have to make sure it has the right minerals, the right vitamins.
Right.
And you have to have the right things growing.
Right.
Otherwise, you're not going to flourish.
Right.
So what I see in people is that they don't maintain the structure. Stuff starts breaking down. The energy systems start failing,
Yep.
and then all hell breaks loose. And before you know it, you're like your house is falling apart.
Right.
So you have to maintain your body like you would your car or your home, which means it needs regular upkeep. And that means that like you don't wait until things are broken, you maintain it.
Preach.
You maintain it,
Yes.
And so that what's
Yes.
happening is people are waiting until stuff hits basically proverbial, crap hits the fan.
Right.
And they go to the doctor, and the doctor's like only the doctor sees that the window has a crack,
Right.
but the doctor's not asking why is the window cracked. The doctor's just like, there's a window crack, let's
Let's
replace the
patch it
window.
up. Yep.
And it's like, okay, that's what happens when you get your knee replaced. It's like, okay, the knee's broken. Why is the knee broken?
Yep.
Why? Oh, wear and tear. Okay, great. How do you avoid that wear and tear?
Right.
And that's the thing about Healthspan is it has to start when you're young.
Yes.
You can't just wait till you're old and broken.
No.
I mean, look, it's working for a lot of people, but it's expensive. And frankly, it doesn't really lead to long-term health
No.
and resilience. So the way that I see Healthspan is you have to invest in understanding what's going on inside the body when you're young. So getting labs, getting functional labs, getting nutritional tests, getting your minerals tested, getting your hormones checked. I mean, hormones are really just fertilizer. So
Yeah.
like if you want your garden to grow and you get old, then you got to actually feed it more fertilizer because your body stops making fertilizer halfway through life.
Yep.
So you got to add the fertilizer back in. I mean, I'm a big believer in hormone replacement if done carefully.
Right.
And then you have to check the gut, check the garden, make sure there's not weeds growing, get rid of the weeds. You gotta make sure there's enough compost, make sure that you eat the right fruits and vegetables.
Yep.
You got to get the right water supply. I mean, come on, water is everything.
Yeah.
If you don't water the garden, it doesn't grow.
No. Mm-mm.
And so water is really important. Minerals are really important because your cells run on a battery that's an electrochemical gradient that's dependent on minerals.
Right.
So you have to look at the electrolytes and minerals in your body.
And if you're drinking tap water, you're not getting all of those important ingredients.
You're not getting all those minerals. No. I mean, I'm actually like working on this idea of like a line of supplements specifically just for this metaphor of like, this is literally what your body needs to grow.
Right.
So feed your body the right things, it'll grow.
Right.
And so Healthspan is really all about predicting also what's likely to go wrong.
Right.
So you got to look at the architectural plans and be like, okay, so this is, the architectural plans and the actual structure. You have to kind of look at it holistically and say, okay, so what's likely to go wrong here? And like, that's your genetics. And so that's like looking at your family history and looking at what went wrong in your parents' health, what went wrong in your grandparents' health. Yep. You're more likely to get those things to go wrong if you aren't careful.
Right.
So in my family,
but you're not destined to get that.
You're not destined to. But you got to know what you're likely to be at risk for.
True.
Right?
Very true.
So, environmentally, also, you have to look around your environment. Like, what do people get sick with in your environment? That matters. And so it's really about like, okay, like my family history, cancer.
Yeah.
Autoimmunity. I got to be careful. I've got those both risk factors.
It's probably because you were raised in the Midwest where there's glyphosate everywhere.
A lot of it's the Midwest. Yeah, I mean, I had a really screwed up gut. So I have to be really careful with my gut health. Otherwise, I don't feel well.
Right. Right.
I mean, just give me a little bit of gluten and I'm a disaster.
Yeah. Yep.
So you got to look at your family history and you got to be like, okay, what do I got to do to prevent, like, for example, my mom had colon cancer. So I have to get a colonoscopy 10 years sooner.
Right.
Because that's one, I mean, you got to do a preventive maintenance.
For sure.
Most people don't do the preventive maintenance. Most people just wait.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to get your preventive tests, right? So I'm going to do a full body MRI at some point in the next few years.
Nice.
Just because I want to see what's going on and like, what do I need to be, because I'm seeing cancer in really young ages in a lot of people.
That was the thing that scared me the most.
I had a lot of friends die.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I realized
literally 3 people I know have died who are not even 40.
Yeah, no, I've always been into health and fitness and cared about what I was eating and exercise. And I remember when I got back to Oklahoma and I started doing breast cancer cases and putting them to sleep and realizing that like it was happening to 20-year-olds it didn't, like there was no age, that it didn't matter if they were overweight or not. Like it was affecting everyone. And that was when I was like, holy shit, this is something we can't overlook, but what's at the root cause of it?
I mean, what I'm concerned about is that it's not always in our voluntary control because our environment is becoming so toxic. So frankly, you just have to ask yourself, like, what are you willing to sacrifice? Like, I'm really in this process right now, figuring out where do I want to live next? Like, I've been testing out Maui. I love it here, but it's a little too isolated.
Right.
But really, I think a lot of people are moving out of cities and moving out of like the crazy stress of modern city life because they're like, this isn't worth it for my health.
No.
It's just not.
Nope.
So
we were going to move to Chicago and I'm like, I don't think I want to live in the actual city. So we're going to move to the Batavia area instead.
Cool.
a
Yeah.
little bit less toxic.
And a lot of it is also just getting tested too, like getting these labs done. I mean, they are unfortunately far too expensive for the masses right now. I'm really annoyed by that. But,
Yes.
doing a detox, I'm about to do a detox starting next week. And eventually I'll probably make it into a product for people.
Yeah.
But like doing detoxes regularly actually makes a difference. I used to think all this stuff was bullshit, frankly.
So
I
did
used to
I.
think it was
So did
I thought
I.
it was like, oh, heavy metals, whatever. It's all made up nonsense.
Yeah.
And then I got tested for mercury and I was like, oh, I have high mercury levels.
Yeah.
Who knew eating all that sushi in Japan would cause me to have high mercury? But
Right.
it did.
Right. N-
And
abs-
so I did a detox. I was like, whoa. In 2 weeks last August, I went from feeling like garbage to having a 2 week detox. I was doing sauna every day. I was
Yep.
doing all sorts of supplements. And I was just like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like I feel so much better. And so it does require regular maintenance. But the thing is that it's like it's kind of up to you how you decide to live and what kind of temple you decide to live in. If you want to live in like a house that's full of garbage all the time, then never fast.
Right.
Fasting is the way of taking out the garbage.
Yep.
So if you look around your home and your home has like garbage everywhere and your kitchen has dirty dishes in the sink and there's ants all over the place, like that's a reflection of the inner world that you're living in. So
Uh-huh.
the kind of way that you think about your car. Like, do you clean your car out or is your car covered in garbage?
Right.
Like that's the inside of your body. Your body needs to have the garbage taken out. So that's autophagy. That's where fasting comes in. Really matters.
The book that I probably recommend, definitely top 5 books that I recommend the most, is Jason Fung's Complete Guide to Fasting. Because it's just like everyone, in my opinion, could benefit from reading that.
Oh, everybody.
And I love that you use the house analogy. I use the house analogy as well for people that like, you get health insurance, right? And people assume that should, cover everything, but you get house insurance just in case you have a house fire or a disaster, right? But if you have a house that was built in 1980, you're going to have to put some money into it and invest it to upgrade it and keep it,
and maintain it.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm like, you either are going to spend money on your health early on, or you're going to spend a lot more money taking care of sickness later in life. And
people would so much rather put $25K into fixing their kitchen or like getting a new car than this body. And it's like, no, this body is limited.
Yeah.
So if you want to get to 100 and look amazing and feel amazing, then you're going to have to maintain the structure. And so what I do is I like weightlifting. I mean, weightlifting, man, it is so important for health.
Yep.
Whether you do yoga, Pilates, weightlifting, whatever you decide to do, you need to lift, you need to weight bear.
Yes.
Because you need to stress the system so that because the thing about the body is that you stress the system and then the system responds. And the coolest thing about your body is your body adapts to your stress.
Yes.
So you stress the system, your body adapts to the stress, unless it's chronic stress, then your body will break. Right. But that's like, if you get hit with a storm every day for like 6 months, you're not gonna it's not gonna last.
No,
stuff's gonna go wrong.
Yep.
So the natural rhythm of life is that there's gonna be times where there's turbulence and there's gonna be times where there's stillness.
Yep.
That's like stress and recovery. So I'm a big believer in like, you got to recover. You got to get your massage. You got to get the kinks moved out. You got to foam roll if you're not going to massage.
Yeah.
You got to get, you have to really give your nervous system time to recover and to be in a state of complete healing.
Yep.
And most people are in a state of incomplete healing because they're in a stress. There's a storm outside every day.
Yep.
And so they're constantly kind of half fixing the house, but there's something else that's breaking on the other side.
Yep.
So this concept of incomplete healing or complete healing is pretty new. And it comes from a lot of the research in mitochondrial health, which is like what my book is about, which is Healthspan. So think about your body has this like battery, right? And this this capacitance. And like, if you think about Healthspan as capacity to maintain the structure, if you are losing this energy over time, you're not going to maintain the structure.
Nope.
So you're going to get sick slowly, and it's going to be like these like sicknesses that are going to break you. Mm-hmm. If you maintain your metabolic capacity and your metabolic your nervous system's ability to withstand and respond to stress effectively, then it's more like you're going through this sine wave of like, you're stressed, you're stressed, you're healing. You're stressed, you're healing. Or it's more like you're stressed, you're healing. You're stressed, you're healing. So when I started doing these meditation retreats and I started feeling my body for the first time completely relax, completely feel safe, completely feel like my nervous system was like, I can breathe.
Yes.
I became kind of a junkie. I was like, oh my God.
Yes.
And I was like, I kind of get why people call this thing spiritual bypassing. Cause like, I can see how people start when you first start meditating and you start feeling this way for the first time, it kind of makes you want to pick up and be like, this whole life I'm living isn't working for me.
Right.
And frankly, it wasn't for me. Like my life in San Francisco wasn't working. I was living in a very, very, very chaotic part of San Francisco, the Mission District.
Yep.
And I was just, my nervous system was shot. And I was like, I can't do this right now. So I moved to Maui for a few months and I've been like healing my nervous system.
I love that.
Working remotely and really redesigning my life so that I can be able to live the example authentically. Cause I don't feel like there was a lot of areas of my life that were out of integrity last year.
Right.
I was overworking myself. I was working myself into the ground and I wasn't feeling fully at peace emotionally.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, if I'm supposed to be this example for people, maybe I need to like go inward and really look at my emotional and psycho-spiritual health a little bit more. Yeah. And that's when I really realized like full person health is not just about the physical body. It's actually about, are you connected to yourself? Are you connected to your emotions? Are you connected to your feelings? Are you connected to your internal senses, external senses? Are you connected to your family, your community, your environment, and to the universe and spirituality? And look, a lot of people are like, screw spirituality, I'm an atheist. I'm like, great. What about your purpose for living?
Right.
Like, what about your meaning of why you're here? If you, I don't care if you're an atheist, you still need meaning, purpose,
absolutely,
and a direction to take your life. Otherwise, what's the point of having health?
Well, you probably know this, Japanese in Japan, they don't have a word for retirement because they don't. It's like, what's the point? If I don't have a purpose, then I don't need to be here. So they don't even have the word for retirement, which goes to that innate desire that every human has to, okay, what is my purpose?
Yeah. And I mean, like they call it Dharma in, different in like more Ayurveda or Buddhism, and they call it Ikagi in Japan, but it's literally like, what's the purpose for living?
Right.
And some people, their purpose for a living, and research has actually showed that people with spiritual pursuits, which by the way, I didn't have for like a good 10 years of my life. I was like, I'm just going to table this because I don't really understand what I believe anymore. Big mistake.
Again, another thing we have in common.
Yeah, I just tabled it. But then I was like, once I rediscovered my spirituality through, frankly, psychedelics.
Yeah.
When you see God through psychedelics, you're like, okay, this is like inarguable. Right. There's God within each of us. Like, I believe that. You don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe me. I don't care if you do. Right. But the miraculous capacity to be alive and to generate this beautiful charge that's literally our cells are constantly doing and trying, and they're like keeping you alive. They're literally constantly running these automated systems so that when you take food in, it gives you energy and life. Like, that is miraculous.
It is. It is.
If you think about it, it's absolutely astonishing that your body can create this charge. Yes. That is the difference between life and death.
Yeah.
Is the animated force in your body, the literal source energy that comes from the mitochondria.
Yep.
And that's like, whether you see it as a materialist or as a quantum physicist, or whether you see it as a spiritualist, like whatever way you come towards this reality of like, life is astonishing and incredible. And a lot of it is still inexplicable.
Yes.
If that's all you believe, then like, that's enough. Like that's, and the thing is that health, this capacity to maintain this structure and to maintain the ability to do work, that is what fuels your purpose. That's what fuels your reason for living. And that's what, and that's what, if you do get hit with illness, it's like, I think it's important to have some spirituality, because if you don't have your health, then it is extremely challenging for like, how do I get through this? Right. And that's, and frankly, a lot of the research I've been doing recently on the elderly people who experience natural disasters, their ability to maintain resilience is greater with actual spiritual beliefs.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if having a spiritual belief means that I'm going to be more resilient, then great, sign me up, And so I've been reading this book called Inner Engineering by this guy. I can't pronounce his name, but this book is just like, it's astonishing. So I really love that book. And I also love the book Buddha Takes No Prisoners. Okay. Because one of the things that I don't think people realize with spiritual pursuits is that it can turn your life upside down. So don't just like go willy-nilly ask the universe for enlightenment, because it'll literally kick you in the face. Yeah. Which happened to me.
Right.
I started having all these spiritual, experiences, and I was like, I was like, what is this? This is nonsense. What is this all about? So I started reading books on these spiritual awakening experiences, and I was like, oh shit, this
They
turns
didn't
people's
teach
lives
us this
upside.
in med school.
Nobody told me that this was going to turn my life upside down. So like,
Right.
I mean, if you're comfortable living in the matrix, stay there. Just
Exactly.
do your work. Go to work every day. Work out. Eat right. Spend time with your family. You don't. I'm not recommending people go off and do what I did. I'm actually not recommending it unless you are willing to be able to excavate the deepest, darkest sides of yourself.
Right.
You may not want to look at that. Actually, if you do look at, you will heal faster, because a lot of what's holding you back from complete healing is this constant energy drain of this background noise of inexpressed emotions and undealt with trauma.
Yeah.
That frankly requires you to be able to feel and sit in stillness and actually feel what sucks about these experiences. And if you're not willing to go there, to go to those dark places and to go look at yourself really, truthfully, from a place of like, I'm going to see you for everything you are and who you are. If you're not willing to do that, then don't pursue this stuff. Cause like, that's what's required for full healing, actually, turns out.
Can you rewind back to when you were in med school? Would you have ever imagined that you would be having a conversation like this? I mean, seriously.
I don't think so at the time. I mean, I was such a materialist. I was like, okay. My psychologist says I'm not crazy and that I don't need SSRIs because I'm not actually depressed or anxious. I'm just stressed out.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. That means it's in my power to fix this. So I was like full on research. Okay. What does research say about fixing stress related disease?
Right.
And I was just like full on, okay, yoga, meditation. I was doing the same stuff that I'm doing now, but from a different perspective.
Right.
I was doing it from a place of, this stuff works and the science says it's going to work. So I'm going to do what works. So I was starting to sleep normal hours. I was starting to meditate. And not from a place of spirituality, from a place of just like sitting still and calming my nervous system.
Right.
I was starting to do yoga because I was like, yoga seems to be the best exercise for someone who's stressed.
Yeah.
And then I was eating normal meal times. So like regular meal times was what I was giving myself. And then I was experimenting with supplements. I've been experimenting with supplements since 8th grade. So
yeah, me too.
I was like a weirdo. And so, I mean, a lot of the stuff, even if you just approach it from like a physiologic perspective, it actually still works. Like you can still do this stuff. But the thing is that to maintain it and actually like thrive in the face of whatever, like your life is handing you, like part of it is actually addressing the sources of the stress.
Yeah.
So like for me, it was med school. Like I couldn't escape med school. Med school was what I had to finish.
Right.
But now that I'm in a place of autonomy and a place of self-reliance, I'm fully self-employed. I, make my own income. Because I actually can decide how I want to live and where I live, I have been more and more like really digging into who do I want to live around? How do I want to live? What environment do I want to live in? And are all of these things going to contribute to my flourishing, or are they going to contribute to me getting sick?
Right.
And so it's more and more and more about, how do I flourish? How do I live in an environment that makes me feel like I am thriving?
Yeah.
And also maintaining connection to my community.
Yes. Cause that is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
That we overlook all the time.
Oh my God. Just to literally, like, people don't see this though, but if you think about the body and like, if you think about electrical systems, a lot of what maintains a healthy system is connection and flow of energy, right? So when you look at a pond that's stagnant, it breeds disease.
Yep.
When you look at a body that doesn't move and that doesn't connect with the environment, it also breeds disease.
Absolutely.
And a lot of this is literally the energy flow.
Yeah.
And so when you go outside and you touch the ground with your feet, you're pulling energy into your body from the Earth's magnetic field. When you go outside and, it's like right after it rains, there's negative ions that are literally giving you energy because you're just experiencing a shift in energy by being outside. When you touch someone and like you literally touch someone's arm or hug someone, there is a flow of energy between two people that is happening.
Absolutely.
When you are around someone, just not even touching them, you are generating an electromagnetic field that's running, that's literally like invisible, but it comes out of your heart. And it comes literally out of the sinoatrial node that's making electrical signals that's literally how your heart beats.
Yeah.
And so when you are in that room with that friend of yours who's a lawyer, and he's really stressed out, you're feeling his incoherence
Absolutely.
of his heartbeat. When someone
Absolutely.
says, Molly, how do I handle palpitations? I say, first of all, let's look at your stress levels. Let's
Yeah.
look at your mineral levels. Let's look at your, your vitamins, and let's look at actually your environment and how you're living,
Right.
and how is that contributing to this aberrant heartbeat.
Yeah.
So it's actually about first principles.
Yep.
It's like literally physics, the physics of energy.
Yeah.
So a lot of my book is about translating these scientific principles into things that people can understand. So it's all about how do you harvest electrons from food, from your environment, from other people, and maintain this flow of energy so that there's this vital force that's keeping you flourishing and vital.
So when is this book coming out? And would you like a volunteer to read it before it
Oh
comes
yeah,
out? Because I will
for sure.
totally
I mean,
volunteer.
I'm working on solidifying the book deal right now, but
Cool.
it should be 2021 at some point. The
Nice.
plan. Yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm going to have you back for that interview, but I would love to have you back again, because I have a feeling that there's a lot of other things that we can talk about. Can you tell my listeners, I've tagged you on Instagram and whatnot, but tell my listeners where they can find you so that they can follow and learn all of the good stuff from you.
Definitely, I'm far more active on Instagram and LinkedIn than I am on Facebook.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn, Molly Maloof MD, Instagram, drmolly.co, drmolly.co. Like those are probably the best platforms. And then if you just want to email me, if you're interested in working together in some way, MMALOOF as in Frank, so Maloof at either stanford.edu or gmail.com. So whatever one you like.
And she's really responsive. That's how I originally got a hold of you. Thank you so much for joining me. I told you this already, but now that we've connected, like if you do come back to the Midwest, I would love to take you to coffee or something, because truly,
I might be in Peoria in the fall. Or no, sorry, in March. So maybe we can hang out.
For sure. I appreciate you so much. And we typically will end this show. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
We didn't even talk about blood sugar management.
So oh my gosh, totally you're right.
About that next.
Okay.
We'll do our next podcast on CGM.
Okay, perfect. And let's get it the date on the calendar, since it's hard to coordinate your schedule and my schedule. For
Maybe
sure.
We'll do it a live one. We'll do a live one in March. That'd be cool.
Okay, let's do that. Let's do that. So do you have a mantra that you live by?
I think the one thing that's kept me going since I was a young child was everything always works out. And if it doesn't work, you make it work. So that's one. And then I just always believe everything's going to work out in my favor. And then really, like if it's out of flow, it's a no is a big one these days. Like
I like
if
that.
anything, if my relationships are out of flow, if like something doesn't feel energetically like it's flowing, then it's just a no. And I'm just not going to pay attention to it. Like I don't have like resistance to flow is just emotional. It's kind of like if like water is flowing downstream smoothly, and then you try to dam the water flow, and there's all this resistance and it screws up the environment. Like I don't want that. So everything in my life is all about how can I maintain flow? How can I maintain flow in my work, flow in my relationships, flow in my inner energy, and just like peace of mind is the ultimate luxury. Amen. It is literally the ultimate luxury. So
amen. Yeah. My mantra is I am a force. And I believe that you are a force as well. And I believe that when we come together, we have crazy synergism to make a force in this world. So I appreciate you so much. You guys make sure you go follow Dr. Molly. She's amazing. And I'm sure that we will look forward to the March episode where we'll talk about glucose monitoring. Since
it'll be great.
Touch on that. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fitz and Healthy podcast. Until then,